actually show up, and we can roll.
Yay.
There we go. We are live.
Sweet.
I'm going to say something here. Live control room. I thought this was supposed to... Okay, well, never mind. There we go. All right, so... Cool. All right, ready to roll?
Yeah,
Sweet.
totally.
Here we
You know,
go.
we're going to need to get to a point where we actually advertise when we're doing this.
Yeah, I know. Well, honestly, we get a ton of views or just listens on the post-edited podcast.
Oh, yeah.
When I do want to start having a semi-regular schedule for the live shows, or at least announce that we're doing them.
Yeah,
So.
definitely. At least give a couple days notice so
Right.
that, the listeners can join in the conversation.
For sure. Yeah, we actually had somebody stop in on the Gaming Comp podcast earlier. So
Oh, very nice.
it was cool.
Very cool.
Sean got hooked up with a gamer tag so that they could play each other in Mortal Kombat. So,
The beauty of the internet.
I know, right?
It's great.
Awesome. Hey, everybody. My name is Josh. This is the Alcohol by Volume podcast, episode 9, live on YouTube. I've got Dennis here with me. Say hi, Dennis.
Hey, guys. How's it going out there?
Woo! We are filming our podcasts on YouTube as much as we can, and then obviously we edit them and put them on the website as a normal audio podcast. This episode 9, will be available at eciov.com/ABV/9. You can head there and read all of the show notes. We do link to everything we talk about in the show and all of that kind of stuff. If you have questions, hit us up with comments, so on and so forth. Dennis, what are we talking about today?
Well, I wanted to kind of continue our discussion from the last episode and just kind of keep expanding on, just homebrewing in general for the new people. But
Right.
as usual, we got to start with what we're drinking today.
For sure.
So today, I decided, was at the liquor store and saw that Ballast Point had their pineapple sculpin. Yeah.
Sure.
And decided to pick it up. I love pineapple and always trying to find a fruit beer that I can actually stomach
Sure.
because I tend to not like the fruit beers as much.
Yeah.
And this one's actually quite good. The pineapple doesn't come out too strong. It's got kind of a undertone of the pineapple. Definitely more of an IPA,
Yep.
which, the Sculpin series normally is. The grapefruit one is also pretty good.
Yeah, I couldn't place it, but it still seems to me like there's a hint of grapefruit in this.
Yeah, that's coming from the hops.
The hops is causing
Mhm.
that? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So the grapefruit in the hops, I think, would balance really well.
Yeah. So the grapefruit one, like I said, I've had it. It's the grapefruit character comes out a little bit stronger in it because of the
Sure.
fact that the hops and the
Hoppy,
grapefruit
yeah.
kind of play with each other.
For sure.
This does have a little bit more of a sweetness to it, and you do kind of pick up that pineapple. I notice it a little bit more in the aftertaste than I do in the actual taste of the beer.
Yeah, it's very, very hoppy for me. As we all know, I'm not a hop guy in general. I like thick, malty beers. Anything malty is great by me. But yeah, this is definitely a very drinkable beer.
It is.
I'm enjoying it even though it is hoppy. The slight hint of pineapple, albeit it is slight, it's still there and still nice.
Yep. Yeah, I was
I
pleasantly
would
surprised
down a
by
six
it,
pack
actually.
of these just chilling.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, they're really good.
Yeah.
Well, a 6-pack you'd be on the floor. It's 7%.
I can drink. I mean, look at me.
I'm just saying, 7%. That's a decently strong
six
beer.
packs. Yeah, for sure.
Six pack could definitely be an all nighter kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
slow sipping, no chugging. Go get some Budweiser if you want to chug beer.
Yes, definitely.
We were actually having that conversation at dinner earlier, whereas if you're gonna go and drink a lot, you should probably get something that's a lighter,
a bit more
beer.
drinking friendly,
right?
Not the super flavorful. Well, and you can get low alcohol, flavorful beers, but go with something a little bit lighter on the alcohol, so you're not just flat on your face after 2 hours.
So most of the beers we cover here are not something that you would want to have like a massive drinking session with.
No. Definitely not.
Cool. Well, that's great. Thanks for bringing this by.
Definitely. I'm glad you like it.
Where's Ballast Point from? Do we know?
I'm not 100% sure. I know that
San Diego, California.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that they are actually owned by one of the bigger companies. So I know it's not a craft, like a true micro beer. But it is an enjoyable beer. And
if it doesn't say it on the label, it didn't happen.
Yeah. Sounds good to me.
All right, cool. So I think we're going to tie into the last episode 8, which is available on the website. You can stream the audio there, or you can watch the video here on YouTube as well. Just kind of talking about some helpful tips for new homebrewers. And what are we talking about today? As far as if you're just starting out homebrewing, what are we covering?
Well, we've talked about the new kits, what you might get, and some of the good starting points. Don't go super crazy on your first beer or anything like that.
Like me.
But what do you do after you've brewed your beer?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how do you improve upon what you've done? Well, a lot of it has to do with your consistency and note taking.
Okay.
So I wanted to kind of cover that topic a bit, just to make sure that people understand it doesn't matter what your end product is supposed to be.
Okay.
If you don't take good notes, you're never going to be able to reproduce it.
So true.
So
I would totally make that mistake.
Yeah, you could make a phenomenal beer,
and then spend the rest of your life trying to
know how you did it. Exactly. Yeah. So consistency is definitely a big part of it. You want to make sure that all of your equipment that you use stays as similar as possible.
Right.
When you make changes, try not to make massive changes to your equipment list. Like change one thing and see what that does to your process.
Right.
You definitely want to take really good notes. You
Right.
want to make sure that you use the same type of water, the same just try and keep things consistent and try not to change too many variables at once.
I'm going to pause there. I always ask the dumb questions just because I know someone else is going to share in my stupidity.
Mm-hmm.
You said same type of water. Do you just use a distilled water? How do you make sure that you are getting consistent water, essentially? Do you just go out and buy a gallon of distilled at the store? Or
so you can certainly do that if you're doing extract.
Okay.
If all of your fermentables are coming from a syrup or a powder, then you don't have to worry about the water chemistry as much.
Okay.
I did that for years when I first started brewing because it was easy to go to the store, buy a gallon of, or a 5-gallon thing from the reverse osmosis machine, and there you go.
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't understand and what they don't realize until they get more advanced is that your water actually plays a huge part in your beer.
Okay.
And actually having, minerals and things like that in your beer drastically change the taste of the beer.
Okay.
Sometimes in very bad ways, but most of the time the water chemistry actually plays a big part in how the beer tastes.
Gotcha.
I mean, when you're talking your beer, you're talking over 90% of it is water.
For sure.
So if your water tastes bad, don't use it.
So no Dasani.
You could use Dasani. It'd be really expensive, but you could do it.
Do you know where Dasani comes from?
No, I don't actually.
It's actually made from the wastewater of Denver.
Oh. Disgusting.
So don't use Dasani.
Okay. Well, okay, so you do bring up a good point though, because if your water tastes good, you you're probably fine to use it until you start getting more advanced, which we'll probably cover that at some point in the future, you know, the water chemistry and that sort of thing.
Right.
But a good way of knowing is if your tap water tastes good and you don't smell chlorine, use it.
Okay.
You'll be fine.
Right.
If it tastes good and it does have a little bit of a chlorine smell, maybe invest in in one of those charcoal filters that you just attach to the faucet and run it through that to get rid of the chlorine.
Right.
There's no real treatment needed.
Okay.
Just make sure that you use a good tasting water.
Sure.
That's all you got to do as far as the water.
Denver city water is actually pretty good.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I use straight Denver tap water for all of my beers.
Gotcha.
And
nice.
Haven't had a problem since I've been brewing. So.
Now, do we have a lot of fluoride in ours? I mean, does the chemistry of fluoride mess with anything, or?
No. Okay. No. Well, I'm sure too much of it probably would, but Denver water, I mean, as you said, it tastes pretty good.
Yeah.
And, you know, it doesn't have a strong chlorine smell, and I haven't had a problem with it.
Sweet.
So.
Cool.
Yeah. So when I talk about consistency, like if you use your tap water, keep using your tap water.
Okay.
You know, if your tap water is bad, obviously don't use it.
Right.
But also along with that, when you are done with the actual brew day, you know, making sure that you've got through the hour-long boil and added your hops and all that stuff. I mean, there's a certain number of variables that'll always change.
Right.
Unless you're doing the same recipe all the time.
Right.
You want to then try and keep your fermentation temperatures consistent. You know, lots of fluctuations in the temperature. You know, if it's
change the taste.
Got a 10 or 15 degree temperature change throughout, you know, a week, that'll drastically change the outcome of your beer.
Okay.
Yeast like being at a certain temperature.
Sure.
They have a range, but, you know, you want to keep it in that range, and the more consistent you can keep it, the better. Even till now, I've just kept it in a dark corner in a temperature controlled room, somewhere where the temperature doesn't change much, and it's around the temperature I'm looking for the yeast.
Yeah, I remember when you first started, you told me you kept it in your closet.
Yep, and now I keep it in the basement.
Yep. That's the nice thing about growing up and buying a house, is that you can actually dedicate space to your hobbies instead of having to put them in the closet.
It is nice. But, you know, a closet works just fine, you know.
Yeah.
But if you don't have air conditioning and your apartment gets really warm in the summer, you're going to have a hard time producing a good beer unless you're using a yeast that can handle the hotter temperatures.
Sure.
So making sure that those variables that you can control, like temperature, your water, things like that, stay as consistent as possible will give you consistent results.
Cool.
And then if you make a beer and you're like, okay, this one, it tastes a little weird, change one of those variables, but leave everything else the same. See what happens to it. That's the only way you're going to learn how the process works.
Right. And I mean, if you end up changing the right variable, then you'll love it. And if you change the wrong variable, go back and change a different one.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
So that brings me to my next point, though, is how do you keep track of it?
Yeah.
Right? Because you can try and keep track of it in your mind, but
pen and paper,
especially if you're drinking beer while you're brewing, which who doesn't, you know?
I would totally, yes.
It's a good idea to be taking notes along the way.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's tons of ways you can do it. When I first started, it was a notebook and I just wrote everything down. Just standard lined notebook that you would use at school.
Cool.
But, you know, I've gotten to a point now where I want to keep track of more variables and, you know, things like that. And I wanted something that's a little more geared towards brewing.
Right.
So I actually use a combination of tools.
Okay.
I have a notebook that is designed for brewing.
Right.
We'll link to the actual product, but it's from another podcast, actually. They sell them, but it's actually a really good little notebook. And it allows you to track, it has a calendar, lets you track each individual brew day. It has places for notes, the recipe, everything. You know, fermentation length and temperatures and just everything.
It's kind of hardcore if you're a notebook guy.
Yeah, but there's even other tools out there that are even more advanced than this one.
Right.
This one's just a really good tool.
Yeah.
So I use that a lot on brew day and to keep track of the notes and things like that. But I also use Beersmith for recipe formulation and some notes. Like, you know, if I'm making another recipe that I've made, I'll go put the notes in there. Because as I'm developing the recipes, I want to be able to reference those notes quickly. So I'll transcribe a lot of the notes into Beersmith as well.
Yeah, you'd probably, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably should not have your laptop right next to where you're brewing just in case something bad happens.
You can, but I try not to. I usually keep my laptop in the other room and
Right.
reference it in Beersmith and
Yeah.
things like that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't usually have it on the table with the brewing equipment.
Probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Unless you're a glutton for punishment, and then knock
exactly.
yourself out.
Yeah. So.
Cool. The notebook is a good way to go. Say I blew all the money I had on my first kit.
Mhm.
I don't have money for Beersmith. I don't have money for a notebook. Am I going to be able to figure out or write down enough information just in a regular notebook in order to keep track in what I did, or what other options do I have?
Yeah. So, like I said, I started with just a regular old spiral notebook with, standard lines and
Right.
a pen.
Right.
You can totally do it that way. As long as you get the information down, it'll work. But
Okay.
if you're looking for something that's a little more powerful and a little geared more towards brewing,
Mm-hmm.
there's a website called brewersfriend.com.
Okay.
It is very similar to Beersmith in the sense that it's recipe formulation, note taking,
Right.
full brew day, tool,
Right.
and it's free.
Really?
They do offer a premium version of it, but for
Okay.
basic usage, it is free. So
Getting
you'd be
started, no
able-
big deal. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
And it's all hosted on their website, so all
Sweet.
the data is in the cloud, and you can, just go pull it up whenever you need to. So you
Okay.
do have to have an internet connection, but if you're
Yeah.
listening to this, I assume you do.
Hopefully.
And, you can certainly keep track of all of your notes and things like that there.
Right.
And it has a strong social aspect to it as well, where you're able to share your recipes and things like that.
Nice.
So
So,
it's a pretty valuable tool.
yeah, it sounds like it. So that's brewersfriend.com. And they do, it looks like they have a iPhone and an Android app.
They have a free and a paid version of that.
Okay, cool. What do you know what the differences are between free and paid? Or
I know that you get no advertising, obviously, in the paid one.
I'd pay
So
for
you
it.
do get advertising. The premium version of Brewer's Friend, you get basically unlimited recipes and unlimited sessions. So
Okay.
you do have a limit on how much you can use it for the free.
Right.
But if you get to the point where you're actually looking at going for the premium, it's
Right.
going to be well worth it.
Okay. Cool.
Unless you don't like the tool, and then go find something else.
Right. So now, what are the kind of things that I really need to be keeping track of as I brew?
So when I brew, I keep track, like I said, I do all grain, but if you're doing
Mhm.
extract, you won't have to keep track of all of this. I actually track pre-boil volume. I keep track of the gravity of the beer before I start the boil, after I finish the boil, volume after I finish the boil. I track the temperature as I'm boiling, just to
Okay.
make sure that the temperature isn't, going up too
Fluctuating,
high or
yeah.
anything like that.
Yeah.
I mean, boiling is boiling, but still,
Yeah.
I don't want things scorching.
Yeah.
I measure the time it takes me to actually chill the beer, how long
Okay.
it's been in fermentation, what the temperature is when I put it in fermentation. Basically, anything you think you might need, you probably need, and then some.
Okay.
Like, there is not too much information.
So yeah, there's you can't, whatever you can possibly write down, you should.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, if you're just starting off,
Yeah.
the things you want to keep track of most are going to be, volumes.
Mhm.
You want to know how much volume you start with and how much you end with before it goes into the fermenter,
Right.
so that you know how much you lose when you're boiling,
Okay.
because that's going to help you when you're making recipes to make sure
Mhm.
it comes out right.
Mhm.
You want to measure your original gravity. You want to measure your final gravity.
Okay.
You want to keep track of temperature as it's fermenting.
Sure.
The basics.
Right.
You don't necessarily need to be keeping track of everything that I do, because you're just starting out.
Yeah.
But the more information you have, the easier it is to kind of figure out what is going wrong, if anything, in your beer.
Cool. Awesome. What else would you say along those lines is something that the listeners would want to hear about? What other things can you speak to there?
Well, I mean, really, the only other thing I could think of is, get online to some of the forums that are out there. If you don't like Brewer's Friend, or you don't want to pay for Beersmith, or you find it too complicated, or you're just looking for something different, you can go online. There are plenty of people who have put together PDFs, where you can go get a brew sheet, print it out yourself, and just keep your own binder.
Okay.
Or go out there, figure out what information you want, make your own.
And do it on a spreadsheet or something. Yeah, for sure.
So, just
cool.
make sure you keep your really good notes.
Yeah.
And same with tasting notes. You know, when you first crack open that beer after it's done and it's ready to drink, write down everything.
Right.
Is it overcarbonated, undercarbonated? How does it taste? Do you taste any weird off flavors?
Right.
And, 3 weeks later when you are drinking the second half of it, or 3 days later, depending on how fast you drink it, see what's changed, because sometimes time is all that's needed to clean up some of the off flavors. So just the more notes you have, the easier it's going to be to say, okay, well, I see what's actually happening here. I know that this beer was a little too young now, but 2 or 3 weeks after that, that's its sweet spot. That's when I really want to crack it open in the future.
Okay. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just a good way to know over time how the taste of your beer changes. And so the next time you make that beer, or even if you're making something similar, you can be like, okay, well, maybe I need to just let this sit for an extra 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, I think let's talk about news for a little bit here. Hopefully that was a good description of, or good explanation, I should say, of some of the stuff that you should be doing with your note taking. Sounds like Brewer's Friend is a really good option. Beersmith is obviously one that's meant to be for
it's
people
a little
who,
more advanced.
Right. Yeah. You may not need to start with that. If you get to the point where you're out using, or you're not able to use Brewer's Friend to do everything that you want, then maybe look at Beersmith.
Or one of the many other more advanced tools that are out there.
Those are just the two that we're mentioning now.
Yes.
So,
mm-hmm.
Awesome. So, what's BrewDog? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, BrewDog is a brewery from Scotland.
Okay.
Yes, Scotland. That was started back in 2005.
So relatively new.
Yeah, they're not too old.
Okay.
And they've been kind of doing their thing, and just recently they announced DIY Dog.
Okay. I'm going to take a guess as to what that means.
Okay.
Well, obviously DIY, so they want you to do something yourself. And since it's dog, it's probably related to them. Are they giving people instructions for stuff, or
even better, they released their entire recipe catalog?
Really?
Yes.
So this is a brew company, and instead of having to sit here and try and reproduce the beer that they make, they've given me the exact recipes to do
for 215 of their beers.
Holy cow.
Yeah, so what they did...
That's huge. You could brew for 3 years and not do anything but BrewDog stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
So what they did is they spent years, working on these different recipes and, things like that. And they, basically what they did is they took all of those recipes leading up to what they have now, and they released the recipes. Wow. So you're not necessarily getting the ones that they're currently making, but you're getting the iterations that led up to that.
Okay.
So you're basically getting what they're making now.
Right.
Because it wouldn't be
It might have been like one
tweak
small change
Exactly.
to be their current product.
Right.
That's so
But you're
bizarre
also
to me.
getting beers that they either never released or haven't released in a long time, or, it's really
That's
cool
cool
to see a commercial brewery go out there and release even a back catalog of all of their beers.
Well, yeah, I mean, because breweries cycle through stuff all the time. They might find a big hit and stick with that and just add it to their, normal production. But a lot of the times they do seasonal things. A lot of the time they do special editions.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. To me, that's awesome because, honestly, I haven't ever had any of their beer, so I don't know. But as a customer, if I also homebrew and I know, hey, 5 years ago they had this really awesome beer that I liked that they don't make anymore, well, now I can go make it.
Yep. Yeah.
That's
so,
awesome.
Yeah, all you have to do is go to their website. So you just go to brewdog.com/DIY dog, and you can you just gotta give them your email address and download the PDF, and it's gonna have all of it. And there's actually the homebrewing Reddit community. There was someone, I'd have to track down the link to it, but someone actually transposed all of those PDFs into XML format to be able to be imported into Brewer's Friend or Beersmith.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's killer.
So yeah, you're able to actually
heart Reddit.
Import all of those into your favorite brewing software.
That's pretty
and
cool.
Be able to brew up any of their recipes from their back catalog. Yeah,
that's crazy.
It's really exciting.
Have you looked at it to see if there's anything you want to make?
I've downloaded it, but I've been so busy lately that I haven't really
well, maybe we'll talk about that at some point.
It's something I want to look into.
Yeah,
for sure,
we'll have to talk about that and revisit that in another podcast. I'd love to see. In fact, I'm going to go download it just to see what kind of recipes they have in there. Because, quite honestly, I am not a creative person when it comes to trying. Oh, let's add a little more hops to this, or whatever. Like, recipe creation would not be my strong point. Like, it just wouldn't.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that actually kind of ties in well with the kind of series, more or less, that we've been doing.
Yeah.
You're new to brewing and you don't have those recipes.
Right.
You don't necessarily have to go buy the kits. Like, grab these recipes.
And just make
and go to the homebrew store with the recipe printout or on your phone or whatever.
Yep.
Buy the ingredients and go make it rather than having this pre-manufactured kit.
That's kind of cool.
Now, you may have to substitute something here and there, but that's the beauty of brewing is that you substitute something and you're going to get a slightly different variation of that beer.
For sure.
I mean, for instance, the beer I just brewed on Sunday is, I had to substitute.
What is that again?
It's a blood orange saison. Yeah. But I had to substitute the hops. One of the malts is slightly different than I planned for.
Okay.
And the yeast is different.
Okay.
I actually found a yeast from a Colorado company.
Okay.
And used that. So,
nice.
I mean, I changed 3 variables out of my original recipe.
Gotcha.
But
we'll find out if it works.
Yeah,
right.
We'll see how it turns out. If I don't like it, then I
adjust from there.
Exactly.
Totally.
So.
There's nothing wrong with brewing the same thing twice.
No, in fact, to perfect a recipe, you should never brew it over and over again.
You should never brew anything once. At least that's my thought on the
I completely
subject.
agree.
Because maybe you're lucky enough to just perfectly nail it the first time. And then, fine, just try and reproduce that recipe next time because you have good notes.
Exactly.
But you're probably going to want to change something in like every of the few batches that you beer.
And even if you don't, even if you
had a little bit too much beer, guys.
Even if you don't want to change something, prove to yourself that you took good notes and that you can reproduce it again.
Yeah, for sure.
Because just because you made it perfect once, doesn't mean it's going to be perfect every single time unless you can control your environment.
Yep.
So.
Which, especially if you're brewing in your basement, probably not. A little bit, but.
No, it depends. Basements usually stay a pretty consistent temperature.
Depending on what you do in your basement.
Fair. Oh, yeah, fair.
And with that, we're going to be done with episode number 9. Thanks so much for checking out the podcast. And you can definitely find all of the subjects that we talked about in our show notes, which will be available on our website at eciov.com/ABV/9. Check it out, and thanks for listening. Have a good day, guys. Say bye, Dennis.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Yeah, apparently I've had too much to drink, too. And on that note.
And we're going to stop broadcasting now.